moments later.
Bet you thought we were coming back with a car. Well, I did too. I had the trailer hooked up to the truck, got about 10 minutes away from my house. Brake pedal went straight to the floor. So limped it back home using the emergency brake and popped the cover off the master cylinder. The reservoir for the rear brakes was bone dry. So we're gonna dig into this truck now, see if we can figure out what the issue is with our brakes, and hopefully get this thing going again so we can go pick up my Camaro. Well, the hits just keep on coming because neither one of these jacks has the stones to lift this truck. So we're taking a ride to Harbor Freight. All right, got a new jack. Should be capable of lifting the truck. Got green because it's my favorite color. Nope, it's just easier to find something that sticks out like that in the mess that is my garage. So let's see if this thing will lift the truck. All right, successfully have the truck up in the air. Let's yank these center caps off. Now I'm gonna end up taking every corner off and just checking for, like I said, any obvious signs of damage or something that doesn't look right. It may not even be something that's underneath the truck. It could be the master, but because I had an issue with it, now I'm a little nervous, so we're going to go through the entire system and check everything. Oh. Whoops again. No obvious signs of leaks over here from any of the lines. Caliper has seen, it's looked better, you know, but it's not stuck. Spins nice and free. Plenty of life left on the pads, plenty of life left on the rotors. It's right in there. So got a long ways to go before we're even close to the wear indicators on the pads. Rotors look like they have plenty of life left on them. Brake line, I've seen better, I've seen worse. It's just about impossible to tell from looking at these from the outside whether or not they are collapsed or anything like that. Again, even if it was, that's not going to cause our issue of the fluid disappearing on us. So I think for now, we can call this side good. I'm pretty confident that our issue is not coming from this side. So I think we're going to throw the tire or the wheel back on and we'll move on to the next side. One thing I am going to do while we have the wheel off and I have access to it is just going to go through and grease all of our ball joints, tie rods, basically anything with the Zerk fitting on there. Just pump some grease into it while we have it apart. All right, so we have everything on this side greased. Taking a closer look at some of our bushings, even that junction on the brake line to this caliper. A front end overhaul on this truck is not too far away, but that is not a fight that I'm ready for right now. I just want to fix the brakes, service what we can service, and get this thing back together so I can move some cars around. Same situation on the passenger side. Rubber brake hose looks good. Pads have plenty of life left until the wear indicator. Rotor looks to be in good shape. Wheel spins freely. So aside from them not getting hydraulic fluid to them to operate, mechanically both sides look good. So same thing here. I'm going to grease all of our Zerk fittings. I'll put the wheel back on and we'll move on to the rear of the truck. All right, driver's side rear does not show any signs of leaking. Now, most of the time, if you have a rear wheel cylinder that is leaking, you'll be able to see it underneath the vehicle. So the brake shoes on the bottom, let's see where this gap is right here. It'll leak down there, and eventually you'll see something puddling underneath the car. All right, so this has been sitting for about a day or two. I still have not seen anything underneath the truck, but I know that the one corner that I don't check is going to be the one with the leak that somehow didn't show up underneath. So that's why we're pulling everything off. So this side looks good. Same thing, throw the drum back on, throw the wheel back on, move on to the other side. All right, so you may have found the culprit on the passenger side rear. You see the adjustment bar right by my index finger is a little wet, and the wheel cylinder itself looks like it's seen better days, as well as the rest of the components in here. So I think we're going to grab a wheel cylinder and a hardware kit. Shoes still look like they're in good shape, as well as the drum. So we'll see if we can put this back together. And hopefully that was our leak. Got the rear brakes apart last night. I got as far as installing the new wheel cylinder and then called it quits because I was running out of daylight. But I did pick up a new hardware kit, new adjuster, and wheel cylinder. So I've applied grease to all of the contact points on the backing plate where there will be moving parts. I have some grease on our new star wheel, which I already have down there. So I think we're ready to attempt to start putting this thing back together. All right, now the way I find it easiest is to put your adjuster and your spring on the bottom, and then with those two on there, you can almost hold it up and place it, and that spring will keep tension on the top, and you don't have to hold anything, or you don't need a second set of hands to do it. So I'm going to put that up, try and get it in position, and then we'll probably put our pins and retaining springs in through here to hold it in place. All right, so just like that, we have just about everything in place. Again, it's going to move around a little bit on you, but I'll put those pins and springs through now, and that should help hold us in place a little bit better. All right, we got rear drums or rear brakes all back together. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is we'll just move this armature out of the way. We'll adjust the star wheel out, and then we can start fitting our brake drum. The next step is I'm thinking that our master cylinder may be defective. One of the seals inside may have gone bad, and it may be leaking fluid past those seals and out of the master, which is why we lost fluid in our front reservoir, but don't see any leaks underneath the truck. So what I'm going to attempt to do is pull off the connection on the master cylinder, and then I have a piece of welding wire here with a piece of paper towel taped to it, and we're going to stick that down there, and if this comes back wet, then we know that the fluid is getting past something in the master cylinder and it's not supposed to. We can go ahead and replace our master. So we're going to attempt to do that. There is a diaphragm inside the power booster, so I'm going to be very careful to not puncture that with this welding rod. Let's see if we can even get that connection off, but if we can, I'm going to snake that down there and see if we come up with anything. Really need to buy one of those inspection cameras because it would be extremely useful for this. Nope, completely dry. All right, I think just to completely eliminate that, I'm going to pull the master cylinder off anyway, and we will bench test it and see if I get a leak by, if I throw this in the vise, I can basically just operate that plunger and see if we get any fluid out from somewhere it's not supposed to be coming. All right, so here's the way we're going to test this. Obviously, we have to block off the two ports on our master cylinder. And I happen to have an assortment of tube nuts from a brake line kit that I bought a while ago. I don't even remember what it's from. But to block these off, what I'm going to do is just sand these down and just weld the holes shut on them. And from there, we'll be able to screw them into the master cylinder. And then when I go to put pressure on that, hopefully if these seal up, if there's a leak, obviously it's not going to come out of these. Hopefully it should go to the path of least resistance and where we're actually losing our brake fluid in the truck. So sand these down real quick, weld these up, and see if we can test on our master. All right, so I sanded down the finish on that fitting. I have it clamped in the vise. Then I have my ground strap on the vise itself. Now, it is absolutely not necessary to TIG weld this. My TIG welder just happened to be closer than the MIG, so that's why we chose this route. So I'll weld this up real quick. All right, we'll give both of those a little time to cool down, and then we'll throw them in and test our master cylinder. All right, get our 2 plugs in, refill some of the fluid that we lost. And now basically I'm just gonna operate this plunger in here where your push rod would go, and we'll see if we get anything coming out where it's not supposed to. Okay, well, our plugs worked because we didn't get any fluid out of those, but we also didn't see any leaks in the master, which is a good thing. However, because these are plugged, I was not able to depress this piston all the way. So with those plugs in, think of it as your pedal is already depressed. All of that hydraulic fluid is up against the wheel cylinders and the pistons in your caliper, so it's almost like your brakes are applied completely. The only difference being is that plunger is still all the way out. So to get past that, we're basically going to bench bleed this master. So I'm going to make 2 lines. We're going to loop them from the ports into the reservoir, and then we will be able to depress that piston all the way. So there are a couple of seals within this master cylinder, and I'm thinking with the plugs in there, that seal may be up further to the front. So that front reservoir was the one that was empty. So if it's a seal that's a little bit further in, only depressing this maybe half an inch isn't going to get to that seal. So that's possibly why we're not seeing the leak. So we'll grab 2 lines, bench bleed this, and see if the further we depress that piston, maybe if one of the seals a little bit further along in the system is the one that's the culprit, and see if we can get some fluid out of a spot. Because honestly, after this, I don't really know what else to check. Okay, now that we have our lines looped from master into the reservoir, we'll do the same thing we did before with the plugs in and just operate that plunger and see if we get anything. So at this point, I'm leaning towards maybe I missed the line in the truck. I still find it odd that I don't have any fluid underneath it, but really don't have another explanation at this point. Well, turns out that a remanufactured master cylinder is really not that expensive. Got this one for 38 bucks. I am going to keep the factory one, and I'm still going to order the parts and rebuild that. If anything, I'll just keep it on the shelf if this one ever goes bad. And I know we didn't find anything wrong with that one, but a few of the seals didn't look that great. I wanted to rebuild it. I really need the truck back as soon as possible. So for now, we're going to put this in. So we're going to bench bleed this, put it in the truck, bleed the brakes. Okay, bench bleed the new master, put that on. All the lines are tightened back up. Put the vacuum fitting back in the power booster. I'm going to fire this thing up. Obviously, I haven't bled the brakes yet, but we're going to fire it up and see if we have any sort of pedal whatsoever. I was getting a little nervous there. I thought this was going to be easy. So obviously, we snapped the bleeder off in the caliper. Now I'm going to pull that out, see if I can extract that bleeder screw, and then find a new one. All right, so we have our new caliper on. Brakes are bled. I'm going to throw the wheels back on this thing, and I'll take it for a ride and see if it's any better. All right, so we got everything back together on the truck, wheels back on, tightened up. So time to take this thing for a quick ride around the block and see if we have brakes back. Feels so good so far. Pedal feels good. Got rid of that clunking noise in the back by redoing the passenger side drum brake. Oh yeah, much better. hard stop here, just see how it does. Yeah, I think we're in business here. Just a quick trip around the block, but pedal feels really good. Truck stops well. I'm going to drive it around a little bit around the neighborhood the next couple of days. Maybe I'll take it to work once or twice. Keep an eye on the fluid level, just make sure we don't have any other issues. And then if we do, we can hook the trailer back up and finally do what I meant to do last weekend. This truck's been up on jack stands for a week between waiting for parts, snow, rain, it getting dark early. So happy to finally have it back in one piece again. And yeah, if it does well the rest of the week, we'll put this thing right back to work. So thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.